Welcome to the Growing Up Bananas podcast, where we discuss the perks and tribulations of being bananas.
It's hard being brown when we feel so white.
My name is Ethan. Raga is sitting next to me today, and in many ways, I'm sitting next to him. What do we have in store?
Today we're lucky to be joined by one of my best friends, Filip Nuran Rajapakse. Filip to the whites and Nuran to the browns. He goes by Filip_Rajapakse on Instagram. He's an aspiring doctor, a fellow watch nerd, and above all, an amazing human being.
Yeah, so mum is Polish, dad is Sri Lankan.
I don't speak Hindi, I can only speak English or Tamil. And then I remember this guy, he was like really offended, like he thought I was lying to him. He was like, what the hell, like how do you not know how to speak Hindi? And he just like stormed off. And
I always get it, whether I go to restaurants or, travel to Asia, they'll start talking to me in Japanese or whatever, Chinese usually.
So I do this sometimes. Sometimes like I feel better when someone else gets it with me.
That's the link too, like, bro, can you buy this?
No.
It's like, hey bro, do you want to get this with me? Because it takes some of the, the guilt off. Nah.
Well, how many watches do you guys have? That's a very friendly intro. How are you, Philip?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming,
A
man.
little bit nervous. Don't know how it's gonna go. And
Don't know what to do with my hands.
I've never been on camera before.
Nah, it's all good, man. So look, first question we always usually ask is, do you consider yourself a banana or a coconut?
Yes, I think literally as well, and just because being multiracial and mum's half white, or mum's white, dad's Sri Lankan, so in that sense, literally a coconut. I guess being here as well, living in like a multicultural society, then I think so.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your background. So like you said, mum's white, dad is not. Just a little bit about that.
Yeah, so mum is Polish, dad is Sri Lankan. They met in the UK, so dad was working or studying, I think.
Yep.
And then mum moved to England to study English, and they met. And then I was born. Well, I have a twin sister as well, so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We moved to PNG after we were one, so we were born in Poland. And then we lived there for 12 years, went to UK for a year, and then been in Australia ever since. So,
Jeez, you've been all over the place.
Yeah, a little bit all over the place, I think.
Probably similar to you, because not as much, but like you grew up in Singapore and different places as well. So.
Yeah, he's quite well travelled and he's lived in different countries as well, like PNG, UK, and now Australia. So he's quite...
And just on your twin sister, I don't know if this is a controversial question, but does she look more like your mum or your dad in complexion?
In complexion, I guess she's maybe a little bit lighter than me, but I don't know. I like to put it down to the fact that I spent a lot more time in the sun when we were growing up. Otherwise, I'd probably be a bit fairer. In the non-sun exposed areas, I'm pretty light.
He's actually white.
Yeah, I'm actually white.
But then, just the sun exposed areas.
Yeah, I thought so.
And I don't know if it's a thing with boy and girl twins, but you might look like siblings, but not necessarily twins, just because there's always going to be like a big height difference and stuff like that. So you definitely know we were siblings, but you wouldn't tell that we were twins.
Pretty cool.
Per se. Yeah.
And twins, are you guys pretty close?
Yeah. I think we've got closer, as we've gotten older as well. Just because you go through different aspects of life together and stuff, and I think so.
And what's obviously very different cultures coming together.
Yeah.
Usually we find that the mother's side is more predominant in terms of the upbringing, just because you spend mostly more time with your mum. I think we can agree with that.
Yeah.
What was it like for you guys? Did you have more of that Polish influence?
I think so, yeah. Firstly, because we were born there, and then we spent the first year there.
Yeah.
So there's that. But the other thing is the language. So I can speak Polish, and that's just through mother tongue, I guess. I don't ever remember like learning it. I think it's just, even when we were in PNG, we would go back once a year. And so we'd spend like a month there as well, and Sri Lanka as well. But I think just picking up the language and mum speaking to us every day. So there is definitely more of the influence there. Can't speak Sinhalese. I wish I could, but I can definitely, I've been around it enough to hear it and know a few words. But it was always a bit harder because it's similar with like Hindi and other Tamil, all the different kind of languages. There's like the alphabet changes to characters. So learning it, if you already know English, you can follow letters, and Polish uses a lot of the letters with some additional like dashes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Whereas learning Sinhalese is like learning symbols, and you just have to...
A whole new script.
It's a whole new script. It's like, it was very difficult to learn. And yeah, we weren't exposed to the language, I guess, as much. So
okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny dynamic as well. And when we had Rago on the podcast, we spoke about like when we travel, but not even when we travel, when we just go to restaurants and things, they look at the color of our skin, and if we speak good English, which I think we all do, it's like, oh, these guys, like, they're speaking English.
Yeah.
And similarly, like I suppose when we travel, it's like, what was it like with you, especially in Poland and going through Europe, and like this guy's fluent in Polish? Must have been a bit of an interesting experience.
I guess like, so we look at Poland, and I guess because I'm brown, so that's definitely the more of the contrast when you go to Poland.
Yeah.
To be honest, we haven't been back there in about 8 or 9 years. I went back a couple of years ago, but just for like a few days. But most of our time there was when we were up to about like 13 or 14. Yeah. So you're quite young, and I think at that point you're not really aware of things like maybe the different looks that you'll get or the different things people will say. But I definitely have heard that, it can be a bit of a racist place as well sometimes. Like, just people think like, oh, like, you're a different color. Like, why, like, how do you speak, that kind of thing?
Maybe people are just a bit curious to find out a bit more about how you speak the language and where you come from.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be, curiosity as well. Yeah. But otherwise, I've never personally had any, issues, if you want to call it that, or any negative experiences. I think it's a beautiful place when you go there. Everyone's actually, to be fair, everyone's always like pleasantly surprised that you can speak the language, and it's a cool thing. Yeah.
It's an interesting dynamic now that I'm like piecing it all together. So like sort of a mixed family in terms of race, traveling all around. Then we'll sort of skip those earlier years, but then coming to Australia, what age again were you when you got here?
I think we're about 13 or 14. Can't remember exactly, but it was grade 9 for me, so I think we're about 13. Yeah.
And with your parents, were you quite close? I know, like, traditionally Asian parents, there's two ways it can go. One is they drill you and they want you to go down a certain path, or two, they've realized, and I think talking to you, you were kind of in this bucket where they kind of knew that you were hardworking, sort of dedicated enough, and like, this guy's gonna be okay. Let's let him do his thing. How was the sort of parenting for you?
I am very close to my parents, and I'll just touch on the past, but like, I guess being in PNG, because our family are all in different parts of the world, it was always just us four.
Yep.
So you kind of had to be very close with them. So in that sense, we were very close. Parenting wise, I guess if you want to take the stereotypical route, like my dad being Sri Lankan, that Asian influence, his parents were both like high school principals, I think. So he had always that kind of academic drive. He's a lecturer in Brisbane. So he was always the more academically like pushing parent, and just in the sense of like, do well academically and it'll set yourself up. Yeah. Not that you have to get this highest grade or whatever. My mum, she just kind of was like, took the back seat and just played the supportive role, and she was just loving, caring, So I think I had a good mix, and in that sense, I'm glad because there wasn't too much pressure. And so I think if you take those two combined, it became a nice even ground of do well, but there's no pressure to do well. So I think that was a really nice thing to have. Yeah.
So you come to Australia around 12, 13.
Yeah.
What could you speak English at that stage?
Yep. So the school we went to in PNG was an international school.
Yep.
So I used the Australian curriculum. So
Yeah.
English was totally fine as well. I had a bit of a mushed accent though, because just before Australia, there was a year in Cambridge in UK.
Right.
And then the PNG accent is like I don't even know what kind of accent it is because they speak pidgin there. So I think I just had it was just sounds
combination
with the English words, just language. So just random accent, and then there was UK in there. I think people used to say I sounded British, and then even now I think it's
I think we both have just a combined accent. You wouldn't call it Australian or a brown accent or anything. We're just an amalgamation of all the places we've lived in.
Yeah.
And it changes depending on who we speak to.
Yeah.
I noticed that around sort of Asian kids.
Yeah.
So then, what were was there much thought when you moved to Australia? Any sort of expectations on that front? What did you know about Australia?
Honestly, not too much, but I didn't really, I guess, again, being that young age, I didn't have any expectations. Interestingly, though, I probably, at the start, I didn't want to move because, again, that move from PNG to the UK, the UK was the first area where we kind of got freedom to, go out, because PNG is just a bit of an unsafe place. So you can't really go out at night. You can't go out on your own. There's just security is too much of an issue. So I went to the UK, and that was the first part of my life where I experienced freedom, just riding a bike to school and hanging out till the sun goes down, going to the shops, coming home. And so that idea was for me oh my God, this is what I want. So I didn't want to leave that.
Yep. And
it wasn't like coming to Australia in my head that I thought I wouldn't have that. But it was just I had just got that in the UK. I didn't want to leave. And then starting school where we went to was such a massive school compared to some of the other schools. So I struggled for the first few weeks to make friends, and it was just too big and too overwhelming because the school in the UK was a quarter of the size.
Yeah.
So for not a long time, but maybe for the first month, I was just I hate it here.
Yeah.
I just want to go back.
Until he met me.
Must be.
Yeah.
Well, how do you cope with that? Because I think it's a pretty common issue that foreigners have, especially kids around that age. A lot of kids went to school with each other from preschool or primary school, and they've known each other for so long.
Yeah.
You throw in, someone with different skin, different accent.
Yeah.
How did you actually navigate your way through?
Yeah, that's right. And that was the thing. It was everyone who was already friends then came into grade 8 from primary school, so they all knew each other. I guess you kind of try to find the people who are also starting around the same time as you, so it meant that they also didn't really know anyone. And there was a couple of guys that kind of started around the same time as me, because you do have a bit of an orientation type thing. So you kind of found the people that start around the same time as you. But it still was hard, and it was more so it had to be a shift personally to be okay, you have to put in the effort to make friends.
Yeah.
It wasn't that it was just going to happen. If you just rock up to school, someone's just going to latch onto you. So I think I definitely went home a few times and cried to my parents, and was can we go back?
Yep.
And then I think they said give it a chance. And then my sister obviously helped me. We would meet up during lunch breaks and just help me get through that, because I think that's where I struggled initially, the lunch breaks, because I was oh, everyone's got their friend groups. Where do I go? Where do I sit? The school is massive. And then just doing more classes. So I think I remember the first friend I met was in a like a junior tech study. It was like a woodworking class. And then we got along and then found out he was into tennis and I love tennis.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
Who is this?
Jackie.
Jackie.
Yeah.
Still
I consider him my first
Yeah,
state
yeah.
high friend.
That's awesome.
And that's why it's cool that we go back so long. But yeah, and he was like, let's play tennis in lunch break. And then from that, I honestly reckon from that moment on, it was just like
That's
uphill.
awesome.
Yeah. That's funny. I remember that moment as well. I was like, oh, this is my first friend. Yeah.
It's amazing how something like whether it's sport or for me for quite a long time it was WWE. I was massive into wrestling.
Yeah.
It's like any kid who liked wrestling became a friend of mine.
Yeah.
So then, like I've spoken about it so many times on the podcast, it was sport that really got me that group. You know, you train with these guys, you see them all the time, and they become your friends at school or even
Yeah.
outside of school.
Yeah.
So we're really lucky to have that, and obviously your friend Jackie with tennis.
Yeah.
It was something that you could lean back on and be like,
Yeah.
this is something I do and find that commonality.
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously through that you meet friends that he's
Yeah.
friends with, and then your circle just ends up growing, and yeah, then you just become comfortable and confident to meet other people, and yeah.
And when did you guys hit it off? Around that time or?
Around a similar time. So we met in
Yeah.
grade 9.
Yeah.
And we met through like a mutual group of friends, like all the Curry kids who used to play sport. And like, I think he was big into cricket. I didn't really play cricket that much, but then we just sort of met, and then like we
Yeah.
just got,
Yeah.
got along straight away, and we had similar interests in like music and things like that. So we just,
Drake.
yeah, Drake. It's a controversial topic at the moment.
Oh, you got to take a side now.
I'll take J. Cole though. He's stepped away.
Yeah. But then it's really interesting because like since that, grade 9, it's been 12, 13 years, even more. In fact, like we've just sort of kept that friendship going the whole way through.
Yeah.
And we still like always catching up, hanging out, and that initial childlike friendship that we had, it hasn't changed. Like we still have that sort of connection. So it's
You're very lucky to have friendships for that long. I think
Yeah.
in Brisbane you find a lot of people aren't from Brisbane.
Yeah.
So like for myself, I had to sort of start again. I knew a few people when I moved up from Mackay. So yeah, you guys, like even going to your place, it's pretty
Yeah.
cool that a lot of you guys are friends for ages since
Yeah,
school.
yeah. I'm
And you've
very-
kept it going.
Very lucky. Yeah, we're both very lucky to have such a good group of friends who've all got their heads screwed on
Well,
straight.
they're all
and,
doctors, which helps. So.
yeah, it's pretty good.
So I got two things just on the school, Philip. So one, how did your sister cope through it all? Is she similar personality to you, or did she sort of just breeze in and find her clique?
I think initially she found it. She dealt with it better because she was kind of my support, during those lunch breaks and whatnot. And yeah, I think she managed to find her group a lot quicker than I did. She's, in terms of her personality, I think she's very good with people. She's really good at like just hitting it off with people, like having a conversation, keeping a conversation going. Like I've noticed that about her. She's got this like very upbeat personality when she talks to people. In saying that, she's maybe a bit more, I guess, like on the converse of that, she's a bit more introverted in terms of socially. Like she'll go out less than me. This is growing up. Like now she's kind of come out of her shell a bit more. But in terms of personality wise, very bubbly, good with people, but more introverted. So wouldn't go out as much when we were kind of growing up and stuff like that. But yeah, now she's thriving, I think. So yeah.
Yeah. And then secondly, you spoke about how you found similar guys or similar people in your situation where, maybe they came over to Australia at that time.
Yeah.
Did you gravitate towards, say, like non-white people just for that, or was it just whoever was around?
Maybe a combination of both. I think it was, as far as I recall, most of the people that started were non-white for some reason. Maybe that's just because it's what I gravitated to, so that's what I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there is an underlying element of you just feel like you're gonna have a more instant connection with someone like that.
Yeah.
And then you just feel like it's gonna be easier to easier for someone to relate to you and you to relate to someone. But otherwise, yeah, I don't really recall seeing any white people at like orientation. I think I was just like looking.
They've come from Sydney or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm kind of doing a tally in my head, and a lot of the girls that come on the podcast, they tend to gravitate towards other Asians just because they feel that there's that familiarity or commonality.
Yeah.
Whereas I think guys, doesn't really matter. It's more what we can bring to the table outside of it, right?
Correct.
Like say it's sport, or if you love wrestling or watches, different things.
Common interest sort of brings us together, and you could be like from completely different backgrounds, but then if you like the same thing, we just gravitate towards each other.
Yeah. So then I'll touch a little bit back on the family. So we spoke about how your dad was not pushy, but he definitely wanted you guys to go in a certain direction in terms of academics. Did you personally feel any pressure for yourself? Because I know, speaking of Raga, you're now on your way to you're studying med, so that's not an easy path. And Raga can obviously attest to that. Did you feel pressure to, like I say, from yourself to do anything? Where does that drive come from is probably my question.
I guess it's a bit of a tricky question. Like I think a lot of what you do is influenced by the people that you're around as well. And so when you're surrounded by other like-minded academically driven people, it instills that in you a little bit. So I guess the drive comes from that. So like obviously hanging out with Raga, and then a lot of our other friend group were very academically driven. They've gone on to do law and engineering and everything like that. So that drove the desire to do well academically, not necessarily do anything in particular.
Yeah.
And then obviously everyone talks about medicine being this really cool thing, and like it's very hard to get to. So that's another thing that makes it enticing, because it's a bit of a challenge to get to. When you've got there, you feel like you've achieved something.
Yeah.
But I'd probably say I never felt pressured. If there was any, it was probably from myself.
Yep.
My dad would mention how it's a good career to go into. It's stable. You'll earn good money. You'll help people and all that. But it was never as if like there was like you have to do this. If you don't, you're kind of disowned or whatever. There was never anything like that. His main thing for me was do as well as you possibly can, because then your options are open.
Yep.
Whereas if you don't try, and the other thing is just like a work ethic, like building a good work ethic. If you don't try, then you don't know what you could have achieved or how well you could have done. And just building a good work ethic is helpful for anything in the future. Yeah. I guess as well, my sister, she didn't do as well as I did in high school, but she did what she could with the grades. She got a degree, and then she's actually done exceptionally well. So it's not always, some people develop that drive later on, or they understand that, also high school is kind of like a difficult time as well. You're figuring yourself out. Yeah. No one wants to we're only kids at the end of the day. It's kind of crazy to think that, especially if you're going for something like medicine, that you have to dedicate so much at that age when it's your childhood and everything. So yeah, I think it's about a balance, and doing what you really want to do.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's a really good point you brought up there, because you're saying there was some influence from others and things like that, but at the end of the day, it's only going to get you so far. To do something like med, you got to really want to, and I'm just spitballing here because I haven't done it, but you're going to have to really want to have that drive internally. Is that probably close to it?
Yeah, I would say so. And I really liked what he said, like a lot of that drive and that pressure, it comes from within. Because if you're relying on other people from outside to motivate you or pressure you or inspire you, that'll only get you so far. But then it's that drive from inside you that really pushes you to go that extra mile and that extra step. And, both Naran and I, we didn't get into medicine straight away. So it wasn't necessarily a straightforward path for us. But it was that drive that we just wanted to get there as no matter what the cost was, and he's worked really hard to get to where he is today. And like as a friend, like I'm really like proud of his journey, and I'm happy to have walked alongside him as well. Yeah.
So Philip, when Rago was on the podcast, he spoke about how religion is something that's quite important to him, which I really took as like a breath of fresh air, because personally I don't know a lot of people around our age that are putting religion as not a priority but somewhere up in the priority list. What are you a religious person?
I'd say personally I'm not a religious person, but my parents obviously were in their own do have their own like beliefs and religions. So my mum is like, she's Catholic.
Yeah.
Dad is Buddhist. And I guess that put my sister and I in a little bit of a more tricky position in terms of like having to choose one per se, because we didn't want to, like upset mum that we were choosing one, or upset dad that we were choosing the other. So from our point of view, it was probably just understanding both sides and just trying to, I don't know, almost practice two religions if you can. And not that we practice them hard, but when we were in Poland, we'll go to church on Sunday with the family there. Whenever we go to Sri Lanka, we go to the temples.
Yeah.
So, and in saying that, like both my parents, they're not like strict in their practice either. So even my mum, she's kind of not as religious as she was before. She hasn't really been to church in years. Sorry to expose you, mum. And dad, like, he doesn't really go to temples here either. So I think as long as we just understand that, like, it's okay to kind of believe multiple things, and
as long as there's some sort of compass at the end of the day.
Yeah, some sort of compass.
Getting you there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where we stand with that. And I think religion is awesome for, having like values and I guess something to not look up to. I don't know how to say it, but just like guide you. Yeah. Like there's, things that you can kind of base your actions on and things like that. So yeah, I'm a bit of a mix in between. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to try to put you on the spot and say like, you need to be religious or you're a shit guy. It's more, I liked that raga, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I was getting was that you said you'd go because there's this community and you sort of saw a couple of your friends when you went to temple and things like that. So it was very inclusive and it became like a part of your life.
Yeah.
From that aspect.
I think so. Like, I think with us in India, like it's more of like it's like a cultural thing as well.
Yeah.
Like religion, spirituality, culture, they're all interlinked.
Yep.
Where we come from. So like, Naran's come to the temple with me on a few occasions. I've brought him there and we have food there, and I give him like my clothes would barely fit him anyway, but we all go to the temple together, and it's more of a place to hang out.
You gym too much. Huh? You gym too much. That's right. Yeah.
Got to keep up with
those shoulders, right?
Got to keep up with Ethan.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so that's why it makes it easier for me, because like it's rather than like I have to go here on this particular day or anything. It's more like it's like, oh, I go here. It's a place for me to relax, clear my mind. I might meet a friend there. I might bring a friend there, have a meal there, and so that sort of thing. It keeps me in touch with my roots and origins. Yeah.
Yeah. That's nicely put. And then my last one on family stuff, Philip. Do you guys uphold any of the, I'd say, firstly Polish or Sri Lankan like traditions, and do you celebrate the holidays? How does it work being from that mixed background?
Yeah, it's probably a bit of a mix of both.
Double holidays.
Yeah, so like we have the Sri Lankan New Year's, and then my mum will cook up. I was thinking my mum cooks like all the Sri Lankan dishes. She's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Incredible.
so she'll cook up like the traditional, it's like this milk rice dish, and like samballs, things like that for like the Sri Lankan New Year's. And then Polish, obviously being a majority like Christian thing, like it's the all holidays that we have here. So like your Easter, Christmas, all that. And we bring in our own traditions. So like for Christmas, there's particular dishes that she'll cook. So you have to cook like carp, this type of fish. So she'll cook all that stuff. You break this little bread cracker thing, and like my grandparents always post them to us because you can't really find them here.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes they arrive like in February because of the postage, but it's like for Christmas. But yeah, we try to uphold those kinds of traditions. Yeah, and food wise, like if we just touch on food, like curries and stuff like that, that's always around the house, and they're very quick to whip up. Like curries, you just chuck spices in, chuck your meat and whatever you want. Whereas Polish food is, it's sort of like dumplings, like soups and stuff. So they take a little bit longer to prepare. So we might not eat them as often, but yeah, we try to keep a mix of both, I think. Yeah.
And how's your cooking game?
I actually rate my cooking game. Not like it's obviously not. Yeah, other people think otherwise.
Traditionally, like you can do traditional like Sri Lankan meals and things like that, or are you more of a Western chef?
I feel like I'm more of a Western. I like Asian stir fries, stuff like that. I do make pastas and stuff like that. In terms of like the Sri Lankan stuff, I probably cheat a little bit because I use my mum's spice mix, so she makes her own curry powders and everything. So I just use that to make it. If I had to do it on my own, I probably wouldn't know what to do, to be honest. Yeah. I'm just glad that she gives me a batch of whatever she makes. And even then it's annoying because when I try to make it, it doesn't taste the same as she does, but I'm using the exact same stuff. And I'm like, how do you do this? And she's like, I don't know. I just, bit
of this, bit of that.
When you're at the level of like, you can just do what you don't have to think, and she just chucks it in, and it's just this beautiful meal. I'm like, oh.
Mother's touch.
Yeah. It's just Asian cooking, eh? It's like, you always ask your parents, your mum usually, how do you do this? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Bit of salt. I'm like, well,
what do you mean? A bit of salt?
Help me at all, yeah. No.
Yeah.
So I was sort of getting at with that is like, are you going to be able to, hopefully down the line, are you going to be able to pass these things on to potentially your future kids if you want them?
I would really like to. And I do sometimes think about that. Like, I really do want to be able to pass that on. And even like language, like Polish, I don't use it as much. So I am fluent, but it's like a bit broken now because I don't use it as much. But I always think about it like, I would love to pass this down, but it might be hard for me on my own to do that. And Sinhalese, of course, like that's going to be impossible for me to do. So, I do think about it. I would really like to. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. But I'd have to see. Yeah,
that's the issue with us is most of the recipes are kind of, it stops.
Yeah.
At a certain generation, which is sad because it's a whole food, such a important part of our culture.
Yeah.
And when you lose that, you lose quite a bit, I think.
Yeah.
But kind of is what it is, right? In this day and age.
Yeah.
Before we start hitting on the watches, one last thing, and I want to go around. Do you guys have one funny travel story? And if you can't think of it straight, top of your head, give yourself a minute, where you've either been misjudged, and I don't want to go, we're not talking about someone racially abused you or something. It's more, where you've either been misjudged, or they thought you couldn't speak English, or they thought you couldn't speak Polish, or like Rag, as you say, when you travel to the south of India, because your family's from the north, right? Chennai.
I'm from the south, yeah.
Oh, you're from the south?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you travel to the north.
Yeah.
And again, like the dialect's totally different. Yeah. Do you guys have anything you can think of? And I'll try out one myself as well.
Oh, yeah, now that you gave me a bit of a hint, so I was able to tell you straight away. So yeah, I am from the south and I speak Tamil, as you know. I don't know how to speak Hindi. I just know a few words here and there. So when I went on a trip to North India, like, to see the Taj Mahal and stuff like that, people there would speak to me in Hindi, because they just assume that, Hindi, like you're Indian, you're in a tourist place, like you look brown. And then like I wasn't able to reply back to them. I was like, oh, sorry, like I don't speak Hindi. I can only speak English or Tamil. And then I remember this guy, he was like really offended. Like he thought I was lying to him. He was like, what the hell? Like, how could you not? How do you know how to speak Hindi?" And he just like stormed off, and I was like, "Bro, like I'm serious. I actually don't know how to speak the language." Because he was like, I think he was trying to ask me for directions or like ask me some sort of question, and I just wasn't able to. So
How did it make you feel?
I mean, I was like, the thing is like, it's nice to be able to speak Hindi and like all the multiple languages in India, but India being such a big country, like it's quite difficult, and it's, for some people it's hard enough to speak their own language from the part of India they come from. So like, I think people in India sometimes don't realize how big and how diverse India is. And the people in those places, they just think, oh, this is India and this is all I know. But then if you go north, south, east, west, there's like hundreds of languages, dialects. And people just need to realize there's like more to the world than there's other people who speak other languages as well. And English is just universal. It's just a medium of communication. That's why we learn it. But other than that, yeah. That's my story.
Well, I guess unless you travel, you don't really know outside of your bubble, right?
Correct,
You're ignorant, not because of yourself, but your circumstances.
My circumstances, yeah, it's no one's fault, but it's not unreasonable. He expected me to speak Hindi, but it's just I come from a different place, that's all.
Yeah. Well, you guys are at least useful in that you can speak more than one language, unlike myself. So I always get it, whether I go to restaurants or, travel to Asia. They'll start talking to me in Japanese or whatever, Chinese usually.
Because of the tats, bro.
Yeah, it must be. But one I've got is we were at a theme park in South Africa, and in South Africa, I don't know what it's like now, but in school you had to learn Afrikaans,
right?
Just the Dutch German language. Yeah. And we were waiting in a line at a theme park, and then one of the Afrikaans guys, he basically said, like, what the F are these guys doing in Afrikaans? But like all of us, I'm not that fluent because I left when I was 12, but like with my cousins. And then he very politely just said, they've got no problem. Do you guys have a problem? And then straight away, this guy was just, he was white. He went even whiter. And he's, oh, no, I'm sorry. And then anyway, they started chatting for about 10 minutes waiting in line. And it's just something simple like that where you don't expect someone to be able to speak or understand.
Yeah.
So I think it trips a lot of people out in South Africa that my family can speak Afrikaans.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Me not so well, but I mean I can understand a few basic phrases because like my parents can speak. But yeah,
it's a cool trick to whip out, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about you? You got anything?
I guess it's very similar. It's probably not as funny, but like I remember a few years ago I did a little Euro trip with like some of my mates, and we were in Poland.
Yep.
And we were catching the bus somewhere. I can't remember where. And I remember looking at the ticket lady. So there was a line in front of us of like all foreigners, and she had obviously like had it because like no one can understand anything, and she's just like repeating this phrase in English of like, this place, ticket this much or whatever. And she was just like so frustrated by the end of it. And then I think we got to the line and she repeated to us again. And then I said thank you in Polish and like, which way is the toilet or something like that. And then you could see just like the shock on her face, and like she actually like started to smile again and perked up a little bit. And it was just, small moment, but it was cool how like, something how she didn't expect us to be able to to speak just changed the dynamic. And
it's funny how it can like diffuse the situation or just change the whole circumstances of an altercation.
Well, she was just ready to go home, I'm sure. She was just like dealing with these foreigners like all day.
Be right, but alrighty, so let's move on to why we're actually here. I do appreciate the background, and it's good to get insight into yourself.
Thank you. We can forget about all that now.
Horology, watch collecting. Is it horology, right?
Horology.
So how did you guys get into it? Because obviously there is a passion there for you guys. You're both younger men, so I'm sure that the budget is going to expand as the finances expand, but you guys definitely have a passion there. Firstly, Philip, how did you get into it? Was there any one or two moments where you're like, I need to start collecting watches? Like, take us on your journey.
Yeah, there definitely was. And interestingly, before the moment, you always had like one or two watches. It was kind of like the fashion watches, like a Fossil or something like that.
Armani watch, or
something like that. Yeah. But my moment I remember was during COVID, and I don't know if it was a combination of kind of being cooped up. I was working at the time, so I did have a little bit of money, and then I was kind of like, what do I start buying? You just start shopping, and then watches started coming up. And then I remember just like doing a deep dive into, you Google best first watch and, best automatic under $100.
Yep.
So like,
Not
I'm going to start somewhere, right?
yeah, you start Googling all that. And then my first one was this Seiko, if I remember the thing, I think it's a SNK 801 or something like that, but it's like a field watch. It's just like a 37 millimeter. It looks kind of like a Hamilton khaki type thing. And yeah, that was like my first watch that I felt like this was going to be my gateway into it. And I remember that watch comes with like a little bit of the dial is like it was like a sandblasted type of dial, so it was very matte looking. And I went to the auto store and got like this metal polisher, and I like polished the bezel of it, so it became like a shiny thing. So it's funny when you see it online, it looks very different to like what I've made it.
That's cool.
And that was like my first intro into watches, and then from then on, we'll get onto the other ones, but yeah.
So you actually did a bit of research to buy your first watch.
Yeah, in terms of like what's a good watch to get into, and then obviously Seiko pops up as that first, like one of the brands that you can get into, and probably is one of the main brands that people will start their watch collection with.
Yeah.
And you can go any direction with Seiko, like divers or whatever, and a huge price range from like $100 to a grand Seiko, which is tens of thousands. But I did a little bit of research, even if it was for $100 watch.
Well, you got me covered. I think I walked past Wallace Bishop or something, and I was like, "Hey, Mum, can I get this Armani watch or something like that?" You know what I mean? That was me. So you actually put a bit of thought into it.
Yeah.
Before we get Raga's story, did you grow up around watches? Did you see other older men have watches that you liked? Because I didn't.
Not at all. Not at all. My dad would always have his one watch, and he's not like a watch person, but he would just have one watch and keep it for years and years and years.
Yep.
And that's one thing that I always remembered about him and his watches. And interestingly though, now when I look back at his few watches that he has, they're like these really awesome Seikos that like obviously I didn't care about in the past, but now with an appreciation for watches, I'm like, that's a really cool Seiko. Like I would totally wear that now. Didn't grow up around watches at all, so I never really had any experience with it. Obviously you hear about Rolex and stuff and you're like, oh, that's cool, but you never had the drive to get one, whereas that's completely different now.
It's funny as well, like you say, coming out of COVID, everyone's got this extra time, you're cooped up. It definitely correlated to a massive explosion in interest.
Yeah, exactly. New hobbies.
I think
the stuff.
Professionals definitely attest to that. So
yeah, right.
Raga, the first question then was, did you grow up around watches? Did any of your uncles or grandparents have something that you saw that tickled your fancy?
It's really interesting that you asked me this question because growing up, I just strongly remember both my granddads on either side. They always used to have a watch on their hands. Like I've never seen them without a watch, especially my dad's dad. Like if he doesn't have he will never leave the house without his watch. And it wasn't always about like the big brands or anything like that, but it was just like, if you're going somewhere, you put on a nice shirt and you put your watch on before you head out. And so that was always a memory in my head. My grandparents, my granddads on either side, they always used to have their watch, and I actually have one from each side that I took with me in their memory to make. So like it was very definitely like it was a big influence growing up for me.
Yeah, no, that's so cool, man. Because I would have loved to have that where I saw something and that kind of made me aspire to it, but I can't
Yeah.
say that's the case. And then how did you start taking it a bit more seriously?
Yeah, so for me, initially it was, growing up when you're young, you don't really understand the difference between like a fashion watch versus an actual watchmaker who's been making watches for a few hundred years. So I have to admit, initially, I think it must have been like a fashion accessory for me. Also just to, complete a look or something. You're wearing a shirt, you have a watch on, and it just sort of, it was nice to have something on my wrist. And then as I sort of grew older and older, it was more like, it's a lot more meaningful than that. A watch represents a moment in time or a memory. So you might have bought that watch to commemorate a particular event or commemorate a particular achievement. And then, so that sort of opened up a whole new world for me. And similarly, my first ever proper watch was also during COVID. Naran might remember this, but it was a Seiko 5 that I bought. It had a wine glass, it had a wine red dial, and it was a diver with a sort of a stainless steel mesh, which I've recently swapped out for a two-tone gold bracelet. But
Nice.
but basically that was like my first watch that was a proper watch brand prior to all, because these guys, Naran and a couple of my other friends bought me a Fossil for my 18th birthday.
Oh, nice.
And I still have that watch, and I didn't bring it with me today, but I'll show it to you another time, but I still have that. But that was sort of, so the Seiko sort of, and you look at the dial, you look at the craftsmanship, and it was an automatic, and I was just fascinated by how, like, there's a mechanical component to this. This is a machine with intricate sort of workings that, and the dial was beautiful. It was shined different in different lighting, and it sort of just opened up my world into watch collecting. Yeah.
And his favorite color is red, so.
Yeah.
I was going to say I can tell, but I can tell now.
Yeah.
So let's say, our friends who look at it and say, well, guys, you can keep better time on your phone, which is correct. They don't understand all those things, and I like the passion that you were talking about then. I like to liken it to, you can look at a great photograph, but the difference is actually looking at a great painting. You're like, there's details here, there's different things, there's a story, there's the effort that it took to create something like that. It's just not comparable.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
So, if you guys have anything on that to tell those who would rather keep time on a iPhone,
get a watch.
Yeah.
It's time to get a watch.
Yeah, and I like as well, like you said, it's different things. You've got one to commemorate your 18th.
Yeah.
I'm sure we spoke about it before, Philip, potentially a year or two when certain accomplishments get ticked off, you hoping to have something lined up for that.
Yeah.
No reason why you can't get one when you get engaged.
Yeah.
I forced my wife to get myself something.
Yeah.
So, we're buying a ring, we may as well get something in return, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's pretty much like anything that you have a passion for.
Correct, yeah.
People have a passion for sneakers or cars or jewelry, What's the difference between this super cool silver ring versus, something that's like stainless steel that looks the same, but you go for this other one because it's got meaning to you. So whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I also want to say, like, it's not about the price point for me anyway. Like, I'm not a snob. Like, I don't particularly look at quartz versus automatic, or I'm not a horologist in the truest sense. For me, it could be any price, but as long as it sort of represents a particular point in time in your life to you that's significant. Like, I could point at every single one of my watches and I'll tell you where I got it from, why I got it, and what event it might be commemorating. Naran might have some thoughts on my watch buying tendencies, but generally speaking, I do like to commemorate nice big events with a watch. Yeah.
I suppose there's no difference to like a tattoo, right? When people get tattoos for meaningful events and things like that, a watch can be that.
Yes.
It's less permanent as well. You guys haven't had to go through it too much as of yet, but that chase, the waiting, everyone says that it is the best part about it. when I was younger, when I was waiting for 6 or 7 years for certain things. I could not agree with that.
Yeah, that's a long
I hated
time.
the chase. But are you guys now, like say everything's, taste is changing, all those things. Are you guys on the waiting for many pieces at the moment?
I'm waiting for my graduation around October, November next year. I do want to hopefully get a Rolex. It's just that big thing to commemorate me finishing med school, yada yada. So in that sense, I think that makes the wait easier because I don't want it between now and then. There's no need for it at the moment. But then if I didn't get it at that point, the wait would probably annoy me. I'd be like, why do I have to wait? I just want to get something that I can commemorate this event with. Why can't I just do it? And you could walk across the street to the Omega store, get a better or equal caliber watch and walk out with it in that moment. It's just that certain brands like Rolex make you wait. So from that sense, not annoying yet, but if it doesn't happen, then I'd be like, damn it, I really wanted this. And you're not going to give it to me because who knows why? Because it's sitting in the back, but you don't want to give it to me. That's why. Yeah.
I think sentimentally, that wait does make it slightly sweeter when it comes through.
Yeah.
But then as humans, once you get it, you're like, cool.
What now?
Yeah.
It's like a phone, right? iPhones,
you're waiting.
10 to a 15. If I bought the newest one now, I'd be like, okay, cool.
Yeah. I'm also thinking of buying a watch for myself to commemorate Naran's graduation.
Yes.
But
well, you sent me your waiting list. Good luck.
yeah, thanks, man. One can hope. So in terms of waiting, I know the good things in life, they take time. It's nice to wait for things and then they happen. But at the same time, I feel like what you said about Omega, it's nice, if you're able to walk into a store, find a piece that you like, at a time that's meaningful to you and pick it up there on the spot. Whereas it's sort of, that experience is not as nice for me when, there's all this exclusivity and, how many other watches have you bought from this dealer, and it's a bit of favoritism and things like that. That sort of doesn't appeal to me. I feel like if someone has worked hard, they've gathered the funds required for it, and they're celebrating a special occasion, I think it'll be nice for them to go and celebrate that moment.
Yeah.
So it sort of puts me off a little bit when there's, I wouldn't call it fake hype. I'm sure there is a waiting list and there is a exclusive list or whatever, but it just it doesn't appeal to me.
Because that in itself is a wait anyway. If you're waiting to collect enough money,
Correct.
If you're waiting for the right occasion, you're already personally stopping yourself from buying that watch to wait for that moment. And then when there's the brand that is just stopping you in general, it's what was the point? I want it now because I'm ready. So
and I'm sure you boys, both of you will agree, when you're wanting something, it takes up a lot of your time and energy. It could be me and Naran, we spend an hour every day talking about random watches every day, and then sometimes it's let's just go and buy this because it's just taking up too much time. We went and bought a watch for him the other day, a Tissot, which he's always wanted. And we found ourselves, talking about it for months. And then he's got exams coming up, and we were just bro, let's just go and buy this, get it out of the way, and then we don't have to talk about it.
I was telling him if I spent as much time watching medical videos, I would be consultant level right now. Because I spend 5-6 hours watching videos of this one watch that I want to I don't know, it's a bit obsessive, but it's
Yeah. And the other thing that's beautiful about watches is having a common interest. I think any common interest, like you said, like shoes or clothes or anything, it sort of brings people together.
Yep.
It allows you to sit down and have a conversation with somebody. And it also, for me, it's a reason to sort of keep going and, try new things and work hard and say for this particular, you know what I mean? It's sort of, it's a good thing to have an interest in anything because it means you're passionate about something, and it gives you the drive to do things and activities and talk to people and reach out and things like that.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't compromise your family's ability to eat, and, which borderline for some people, I'd say. Speaking of the watch that you've been researching for 5 hours a day, what is your Grail watch? So the ultimate singular watch if you could only have one, money wasn't an issue.
Ooh. I guess I would probably pick something maybe in Patek. Yeah, like a Nautilus kind of with some additional complication on it. Like not just the plain one.
Yep.
If I had that, no money was an issue, didn't have to wait 50 years, then yeah, that's probably what I would get.
Good choice.
Yeah.
But you, Raga?
For me, I think I know there's a lot of premium brands out there that, position themselves at a price point higher than Rolex. But for some reason, Rolex has always been that end goal, that target for me. So I think I would be happy with any sort of Rolex per se. But if I had to pick one, I really do like what they call the John Mayer Daytona with a green dial, and the chrono. I really love that. So I think that would be
Daytona was really cool.
Yeah,
too.
a Rolex Daytona I would be so content, so happy.
I would just want that white one, the classic white
the
one.
Panda.
Yeah, the Panda.
Yeah.
Both very good choices. So we'll quickly review a couple of pieces that we've been talking about today. We'll maybe do 2 each, just for time's sake. Just want to know, as Rago pointed out, story behind it, why you got it, what appealed to you, and anything else that you guys can kind of think of. So if you want to start, Philip, one that we're gonna discuss.
So first one, probably my Seiko 5 GMT diver. Can't remember the reference number.
Not important.
You put it up on the thing, but this one was commemorating, I guess. I never really got myself a watch for getting into medical school. So when I finished the first year, I think it was first year, we went out. I wanted to get a watch. And initially I had planned to get a Tissot PRX. I didn't know which one. I just wanted to go into the store. And I just had like a $500 price budget. And we went into store. I went in with Raga because I wouldn't be allowed to get a watch without Raga.
I just like to be there.
Yeah. And like I just wasn't like I didn't like the 40mm one. It was a bit too big for me. The 35 is a bit too small, so I was kind of iffy. And then I was like, let me just try the Seiko. I knew it was a watch that was there, but it was like $800, so it was a bit, or $850. It was a bit out of the price range. $875. And I was like, let me just try it on, see what it looks like. And then as soon as I put it on, it was like a halo coming out of it. It was like, this is it, like so beautiful.
Yeah.
But I was like, damn it, I only wanted to spend $500. And then the feeling that I got trying that on was well beyond what I got trying a PRX, and I would hate to have just like bought something for the sake of it and then not be happy with it.
Yep.
So then, started looking at that one, asked them what the best deal they could do, and they brought it down to around 600 something. So it wasn't too far off like where I wanted to spend anyway.
It's a pretty good discount then.
Yeah.
875 to 600.
Yeah, or 650, I think 660, something like that.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, and then I was so much happier with that because I liked the way it looked. It fit right. Still was the right occasion for me. And yeah, it just feels like that few $1,000 watch. Like it feels way more than it costs. Not that that matters, but it just looks really nice for me. And so that was the cool story with that one. Especially that it was like unexpected. So yeah.
And just before we go on, these watches that were bought to commemorate something special, are you guys going to hang on to these forever? When you guys are high-flying consultants and, medical directors of here and there, and the money's not a factor at all, you guys going to hang on to these ones that you've...
I think I am, especially if it's something like that. Firstly, because of the occasion. And for me, that watch is one as well. Like, if I do end up, getting these awesome pieces later on, like Rolex or whatever, I feel like I'm not going to wear them every day either. So you kind of want something like this Seiko that you can just wear on a night out and not care about knocking it on a table or like, not getting worried about someone potentially trying to steal it. If anyone looks at a Daytona on your wrist, I'm sure you're a target for the right person. So like you still want to have these pieces that you can wear and not worry as much.
Yep.
Very true.
Yeah. But in saying that, actually, to get this watch, we don't have to talk about it, but Raga will know I actually sold one that I really liked, but I just wasn't wearing as much.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, not necessarily holding on to them just because you want to is also not a great thing, in my opinion. Like, I think if someone else will wear it, get more use out of it, be happy about it,
Yeah.
get rid of it, and get something that you will wear. So, yeah.
Yeah, rather than like the hoarding mentality.
Yeah.
You're going to have about 70 watches very soon. So one comes in, one's got to go out.
Yeah, it's good. I learned that from Nuran. I think he sort of inspired me. It's like now I've had a really good look at my collection and been like, oh, is there anything that I might potentially be able to dispose of? Because if it's not being used by you, that deserves to be used by somebody else. Otherwise, it's a disrespect to the piece.
Well, and that's the beauty of a watch, right? Like, yeah, some will lose value, some will appreciate, but there's still going to be some value in it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a device to keep time, and it's got metal and different substances there
that are
worth something. So keep telling myself that.
Yeah.
Let's take us through one of yours now, Raga.
Yeah, sure. So once again, the one I'd like to talk about is a watch that I got for my graduation. So my graduation from medical school was a big event to me because of the ordeal that it took to get in and then finally complete the 6-year journey. And my lovely parents, they wanted to buy a watch for me to commemorate the occasion, and they sort of asked me, like, you know, what I was interested in and so forth. And we were speaking about watches growing up, and, you know, being from an Indian background, for some strange reason, Rado always used to have a huge command of respect and recognition in India. I'm not sure why.
Must have sponsored the cricket at some point or something. Legit, I reckon.
Possibly that, or like just the materials that they used. It was very shiny, glossy, and I think being from the Indian subcontinent, like Indian people, you know, like to wear a bit of gold. They like to wear shiny things. It's a bit of glitz. I wonder if that sort of subconsciously influenced me.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
And I've seen a few family members wearing Rados at their weddings. And uncles wearing Rados and things like that. So I think I always had that in the back of my mind. And it was a reasonable price range. It wasn't, you know, $5,000, $10,000. It was, you know, sub $3,000 essentially. And it was, it's a black and gold Rado Centrix. It's chrono as well. And it's a gorgeous piece. I think it's got some high-tech ceramic that's scratch resistant. It's got a bit of titanium as well in the links as well, which is really nice. And I really value like good craftsmanship. So also serving a purpose of telling the time. It also was a beautifully crafted watch with very high quality materials, which I really liked as well. And it's not a watch that I wear all the time around. I'm sure you know, like I've only worn it like maybe 5 special occasions. So I still reserve I think it's almost disrespect to the watch if you start wearing it every day because you bought it for a special occasion. Now I wear it for my friends' weddings or my friends' engagements or a hospital conference or something like that. So I try to reserve it as much as I can for special occasions. But at the same time, I also try to wear it because if you're going to put it away in a box and not wear it at all, that's also a waste of the piece as well.
Yep.
But yeah, that's my first proper luxury watch to commemorate a big occasion.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's, you know, one of the biggest accomplishments you'll have in your life. And Philip, you're not far off either, so definitely worth... well, thanks, Mum and Dad, but I'm sure they'll get it back at some point.
Yeah, thanks to my mum and dad, obviously. Like it, and I'm always never gonna like these kind of watches. You can't get rid of. Like they're yours, and they symbolize that spot in time. So it's gonna be with me forever. Yeah,
nice, man. No, that's a cool summary of that. And it's funny how you sent me that meme, and I've seen it so many times of where you buy a watch and you think the chicks. They're gonna we get so much more respect, and it's
like a Patek on that or something.
It's never the case. It's the same as sneakers. It's the same as clothing to an extent. But yeah, you're buying it not obviously for other people, hopefully not, but the respect is usually with other guys.
Watch heads.
Yeah.
It's like every time I buy a watch, it's like, oh, what would Naran think of this? Like, it's like, would Naran like this?
It's a good way to vet any silly purchases.
Yeah.
We'll break it up before we do the last two, but worst purchases.
Ooh.
I've spoken about mine. What do you guys think? I'll give my one. So
Yeah, go ahead.
got some money from school. It was kind of a bursary for sport. So it's cashed up coming out of year 12, cashed up back in the day. And I can't remember which celebrity I was trying to copy, but anyway, I wanted like a diamond, fake diamond, obviously, type watch. I wanted something iced up. So I remember I went to, it was DFO, Wallace Bishop, and there was a Mark Echo watch. Now, Mark Echo does not make watches or good watches. So you can only imagine. This thing was gold. I could probably put a photo up of it.
Yeah.
Back then, so I was 17, I reckon it cost maybe $600, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
For a 17-year-old back in that time.
Yeah. So, and that was, that would have probably been like 40% of my net worth at the time. But I needed to have a fake diamond watch. So I bought that. I reckon I wore it 5 times. And we're talking, 15 years later, I've probably still worn it 5 times. So that was the worst watch I've ever bought.
Yeah.
Because it just was so tasteless. There wasn't really a story behind it. I just wanted to look like a rapper.
Do you still have it?
I still have it. It's in my cupboard.
Okay. You'll have to put it out after this.
I'll bring it out for you guys.
Yeah, that would be good.
But yeah, worst money spent. One, because I just financially was not in a position to do it.
Yeah. 2,
it looked horrible. And 3, no real good story behind it. But I guess the good story is that it has no good story. I just bought it and regret it.
It's a story in its own.
Yeah.
I probably don't have like anything that I consider a worst purchase. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In saying that, there are like some watches before, I guess, the taste has evolved that I would just never wear now. And they are mostly fashion watches, but I feel like even for a fashion watch, they're like they're not even very fashionable, if you want to call it that. And yeah, I guess the one that I sold before this would, like, for me, that was like a size thing. So like, I guess my taste has evolved in terms of knowing what sizes work for me, and even just like dimensions, like not necessarily based on numbers, but just like trying a watch on before committing, and just knowing what looks good for my wrist, what my taste is. So there's definitely watches that I wouldn't wear anymore just because they don't really fit me well, or I'm not comfortable with them. Raga often says like a lot of watches I try, like they look really good, but they just like inherently don't feel good on my wrists, even though they might look good to other people, and I would just feel like off wearing that. So there's definitely some watches there that I have like that, but nothing I consider like horrible purchase.
It's a good point though, because like you say, when people look at dimensions, some watches fit differently. Some are 40s and some are different 40s.
It's the whole lug to lug thing for me. Like if it's too long, it just overhangs on my skinny wrist.
Yeah.
Even though the number 40 might be like small. Yeah. Like it'll just hang very weirdly, and
it looks different on different people. To do with the dial, how big the dial is, and if there's a bezel and
like wrist shape, all that changes these factors.
Yeah.
But there's got to be some there.
You've caught me there. So I'd like to not regret like pieces I've bought, because clearly at that time it meant something to me.
Yeah.
But I think Naran would know, like, I've been having some mixed thoughts about my Omega Moon Swatch collaboration. So Omega Swatch collaboration. Yeah. I sort of fell into the hype and the bandwagon fans because I'm a huge fan of James Bond and things like that. So Omega always has a very special place in my heart, and it's definitely a watch I'd like to add to my collection.
Yep.
And I also have a big love for astronomy, and I'm fascinated with NASA and going to the moon landing, and Neil Armstrong and all of that as well. So
what's moon landing?
When Swatch and Omega did the collaboration, and you could get the Omega branding for a very affordable price, obviously it was a very enticing thing to me. At that point in time when I got it, it was sold out everywhere, and I went and paid above retail to some dude. I went and picked it
I
up.
remember when you got that too.
You remember that?
'Cause you were trying to get me to get one as well, I think.
Yeah. So I do this sometimes. Sometimes like I feel better when someone else gets it with me.
Send us the link too. Like, bro, can you buy this?
No.
It's like, hey, bro, do you want to get this with me? Because it takes some of the, guilt off.
Yeah.
Nah. But I genuinely want you guys to get a watch with me. I think it would be nice. Anyway, so that was, and then when I got it, I just found like that hype. It just wasn't there, like it came in a plastic box, very flimsy. The materials were not very high quality. And to be entirely honest with you, it's not befitting to have the Omega branding on it. So I've tried on a couple of occasions to get rid of it myself. But then, interestingly, I've now put a new strap on it, a brown leather strap. I've got the Jupiter, so it's got a nice beige dial. And I've fallen in love with it again.
Okay.
So I've now removed the listings from Facebook Marketplace, and I love the watch. And Nuran, you've seen photos of it. It really looks very nice on that new strap. And this is also a cool story of how like watch collection is a journey. Like, and you feel differently about a piece at different times, and it changes with the time. Yeah. So sometimes you just have to ride it out and see how you feel. Yeah.
Well, it's cool that you've grown back in love with it. Can't say the same about my Echo, but you'll see why.
Really keen to see it, yeah.
Last one then for you, Philip. Any other ones that you want to talk about, or there's another story behind?
I do want to talk about my G-Shock, but not necessarily because there's a story behind it, but just because how much I love it. I guess like I had, all these bracelet type watches, like the Seiko, these Tissot's and stuff, but like for my main lifestyle of like being active, going to gym, being at placement where, it's dirty, like you've bodily fluids and all this stuff. And I like to surf as well, even though I'm not very good. So I kind of wanted something that I could do for all of that, and not have to worry about it, not having to worry about getting it banged up and scratched and whatever. And so I started looking into G-Shocks, and then came across like the classic, their digital square, G-Shock Square. It's just black. And it has solar as well. So like,
if I'm out,
oh, really?
It's pretty handy.
Yeah. So if like I'm surfing or whatever, it's charging at the same time. And the main thing was like when you're out there, you don't know how long you've been out there. And so sometimes you're like, just want to check the time. So I think that's what kicked off the idea of having to get one. And yeah, I just love it now because I can use it literally for everything. I can wake up with it, put it on, and not have to take it off until the end of the day, like shower, gym. It's just applicable for everything. Whereas if you wear something like this, I'm not going to wear it into the ocean.
Yeah.
I'm not going to wear it to the gym because it's going to get scratched everywhere. And yeah, I just wear it everywhere. I think it fits well for me. It's black, so it can go with like any outfit. So there's no particular story behind it, but I just love it. Like, I love it so much.
So it's more handy than 99% of the watches that we
Literally, yeah.
100%. The versatility in that itself, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think, it's just, do it all watch. So
it's a good purchase. That's the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, I wear my Garmin pretty much every day.
Yeah.
So, look, the steps and like the versatility, I play different sports and things. It's good to be able to track.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with having those types of watches that, you feel are going to give you that extra versatility in different situations and things.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. It doesn't have to break the bank either. It's like $150.
Yep.
You've got multiple world times in it if you want, like 5 different time zones. Like, it does what a $20,000 watch would do.
And more.
It's
got solar, man.
It's got solar, yeah.
Nah, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
And Rago, what about you for your last one?
For my last one, I just want to talk about like these 2 watches that I got for myself and Nuran recently. So they're vintage Seikos from the 1970s, so like late 1970s.
Yep.
I came across this ad on the internet. This elderly grandpa, he was selling these 2 watches. It's a Seiko quartz watch, like one of the first quartz watches they made. It was like the tank style, so the Cartier style, one in gold and one in silver. And I messaged him, and I sort of also briefly told Naran about it, and he was sort of on the fence. He was like, "Hey, yeah, that looks kind of cool," but he wasn't particularly interested. But so I went to see the watch in his house actually. So he gave me his address, and like he let me into his home, and he sort of showed me these watches. And he was a really, really lovely, like elderly man in his 80s. And I sort of said to him, "Hey, look, I really respect you like letting me into your home and stuff, but in this day and age, it's probably not a really good idea to let strangers like myself into your home, into where you live." And he was sort of like, "Oh, but thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it, but it would be very impersonal of me if I didn't let you into my home." He was just a gentleman, like men from back in the day who had strong values and just really lovely. So I saw the watches. They were both in really, really good condition. They're almost 50 years old. He'd put new batteries in them and they were running. And of course, I'll bring it and show it to you for the viewers as well. But so I just wanted to. I picked up both of them, and he was very happy about that because he was like, "Oh, if I sold one, it'd be hard for me to sell the other one," or something like that. And I was like, "Don't worry, sir. I'll get both of you. One for me, one for my friend." And he was very happy. He wanted cash, so I paid him in cash, and I gave it to Naran. I picked him up from his placement. So the thing with me, right, when I get something for someone, I get too excited. And I need to tell them straight away. Like, I'm very bad at surprises. And I'd rather, like, give it to you sooner for you to be happier longer rather than make you wait. I don't know, I just have this weird theory. Anyway, so I picked him up from placement and I just gave him the watch straight away. And he was, like, pleasantly surprised or amused. And then I messaged the grandpa afterwards. I sent him a photo of both of us wearing it. And I thanked him for giving it to us.
Tanked him.
Huh?
Tanked him.
Got him.
Tanked him, get it? Because it's a tank watch. Yeah, I get it. And then he sent me a lovely message, which I showed Naran. He was like, "If I was 60 years younger, I would have liked you to be my friend." Or he said something along those lines. And it was a very, very touching moment for me. Like, it's just, so that was a nice moment that I had. I bought something for my friend. I shared that moment with him, but I also had a nice moment with the person who sold it to me, who I respected and valued as well.
Yeah, man, that's cool. Was there any story on why he had the two? Did you ask him about that?
I briefly asked him about it. He told me that he bought it from a jeweler down south near Sydney. And he bought it and he never used it. He just tucked it away in a drawer.
Okay.
I never asked him why, but he also had a few other pieces in his collection. He had some of those what are they called? The nurses use them, like the hand clocks or
like a pocket watch?
Yeah, pocket watches. Yeah. So he had a few pocket watches as well. Before wristwatches became a thing, people used to have pocket watches. So I suspect he might have also been a watch collector himself. But I certainly believe it when he said he chucked it away in a drawer, because there's no way a 50-year-old watch would be in unmarked condition on the dial, and the bracelets were in pretty good nick as well. So I thought it was pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's nice that you got one, and it's nice that you got another one for a friend. So again, something that's actually meaningful. And there's that story behind it now. You met this gentleman, and you guys have had an experience together. So yeah, that's a really cool one.
That's a cool story.
Cool.
For me, anyway.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then what's next on the watch collecting journey? So you're waiting, hopefully, in a year or two, for the AD to give you a call.
Yeah, that is ideally next.
Yeah.
But obviously, having that urge, you kind of like ask yourself whether maybe when I finish this year, should I get something to commemorate that, or just
we gotta find
excuses to make an occasion for yourself, right?
Yep.
Like, you can if you want to. But there are other things I look at. Like, I really like Tudor as well as a brand, and they're you can get incredible pieces for like a third of the price of a Rolex.
Yep.
So you can get like a Black Bay for $6,000, and sometimes I think like should I just do that maybe at the end of this year, but then I come to reality and I'm not working, so but yeah, I think the next thing will hopefully be the graduation watch, and then from then on it's going to be dangerous, because I'll be working again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to control myself again.
That's the trouble.
Yeah.
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 How many watches do you guys have?
So
total?
3 that I brought. This one 4, 5. I think I have about 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Including the one I got for you. Or?
Oh, maybe 7 actually. Yeah. So
Yeah.
7. Yeah. 7. So I have a couple. I have a couple of Timex watches as well, which are really cool actually. I think they're pretty cool. Yeah.
What's your last count?
I've got about like 10 or 12, but like not all of them are like wearable or in rotation or anything. Some of them are from like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Some of them are my grandparents' watches that I just sort of keep in the collection. So daily used rotation, probably 7 or 8 that I'm able to wear and rotate, but then the rest are all sort of collectible or historical sort of pieces. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not as many as you think, Ethan. Thank you very much.
It isn't. It's way less than I. It's way less.
I'm trying to see if he's telling the truth or not.
Count them up.
We'll go home and check.
Yeah, I'll send you a message. You can.
Yeah. And there's something beautiful about, like you say, where you did spend within your means, and you're like, yeah, looking back, crap, it'll take you back to those times where I was studying and I just started out as a doctor, all those things.
Yeah.
And then it can take you back, and
that
it means
spot.
something because that's what you could afford at the time.
For sure.
So we'll just finish up with a quick rapid fire. So, Philip, whatever comes to your head first, try not to think about it too much. It's more sort of reactionary.
Yeah.
So, who do you go to when you need advice?
Ooh. Mum. Yeah.
What's your biggest priority at the moment?
Well, don't think. Just getting through study, keeping a good balance, staying healthy. Yeah.
Yep.
Keeping
That's
up
cool.
sports. Yeah.
I would have loved if you're just like, oh man, I just want my legs to get bigger or something.
Arms for me.
Plenty of accomplishments coming up, but at the moment, what would you say is your greatest accomplishment?
Is it cliche to say just like being where I am now?
No, not at all.
Yeah, just the hard work I put in my undergrad, working for a few years, achieving my goal of getting into medicine, and but just keeping friendships, building the person I am now.
To me, that means that you're content with where you're at.
Yeah.
At the stage, which is very refreshing, because I think as men, a lot of times we're striving for more. What's next? Whereas if we look at ourselves a couple of years ago versus where we are now, we'd be very proud of ourselves.
Yeah, I'm just happy where I am now. I think, and there's, flaws there, but
we've come a long way, all of us. Yeah.
Well, there was that sort of video or podcast one of my friends sent me, but basically they're saying, if you look at yourself 5-10 years ago, I mean, we're all still pretty young, but you've already achieved most of the things that you set out or didn't think you could achieve already.
Yeah.
So has it made us happier? Yes, maybe no.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, it's telling us that all these things that we thought we wanted to do or could do, is that going to fulfill us? Yeah. No, it's the journey along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all those sorts of things. It's just a mindset change. And I think we all sort of have to stop and think about it at sometimes because, like I say, we're all trying to improve and get better and find the next thing. But we've probably already done the things that we set out to do in some ways.
Yeah.
If money didn't matter, what would be your dream job?
Ooh. Professional tennis player.
Fair
Definitely.
enough. Yeah. Money would help too then.
Yeah.
Or it would help the money.
Yeah. Well, you need money for coaches and training and everything. But I think, a lot of professional sports, you do need money to go pro. But if it
did you play at a decent level?
Well, never I played a few tournaments around Brisbane area, but I never really went too high. But
he's very good though.
Yeah.
I still play fixtures once a week. Yeah. And I've been playing since I was 6 or 7. So that's something I'll never ever give up and stop as long as my body can take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Raga, can you describe your good friend here in 3 words?
Ooh, yep. Gentle, hardworking. Is that 2 words?
Hardworking is for hyphen working.
Gentle, hardworking, and caring.
Would you agree with those? You happy with those?
Yeah, I'd agree with them. I'll take
You're
them.
welcome. You paid me $100 for me to say those 3 words.
Nice. If there's one thing you could change about yourself, doesn't have to be physically, but can be.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Ooh, maybe being more present. Like, I don't really know. Yeah, that's a tough one.
It's like a slight mindset shift.
Yeah, I feel like, maybe sometimes I feel like I can, like, in conversations, I can drift, and I don't know, maybe it's to do with just the way I think, but, like, sometimes, like, I'll just get distracted easily, so, yeah, I don't know.
I think we've all got ADHD to an extent.
Yeah.
It's being on a phone, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Getting used to, like, doom scrolling and whatnot. Yeah.
What do you do to relax?
I like to just keep active. So if I ever want to break for anything, like gym is my thing. Gym, and then I look forward to my one day of tennis and stuff. So yeah, just being active. If I go out for a surf or that relaxes me, even if it's
It takes your mind off other
whatever
more
you're doing.
stressful
Exactly.
activities, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last one, what do you look forward to every day?
I would say maybe like interactions, whether it's with patients or just friends, like just company. Trying to have like a good happy day kind of. I feel like the one thing I think about when I wake up is like I want to just be happy with everyone today and like experience that with a group of people. So yeah, that's what I would probably say.
That's good. And I'll put that one to you as well, Raga. Is there one thing every day we're like, man, my whole day is made once I get this? And it could be something stupid like a coffee or your first pee. You know what I mean? Is there anything you can think of that you look forward to every day?
I think look forward to every day. As long as I've like accomplished something meaningful that day, it's a good day for me. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be academic or professional or task related. It could be something as simple as coming here and doing this podcast with you guys, or going for a coffee with a friend, or making someone's day a little better, or making them smile. Anything, yeah? So it could be in a professional sense, in a personal sense, social sense. As long as I've done something meaningful, I think that's good.
I could say my protein oats in the morning. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like peanut butter in there, like yum.
Nice. Cool.
I like that.
Thanks, bro.
But no, thanks guys for sharing those stories, and there's plenty there to dissect, I think, and hopefully give. I mean, we're rookie watch collectors ourselves, but hopefully give other people a bit of an insight into, how to start it off. And
rookie watch collector, this guy.
Definitely rookie.
Play it down, doesn't he?
Yeah. Look at that.
Man, I don't even know any references or specs or anything. I just
know.
buy things like shiny. But yeah, no, man, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Thanks, Raga.
Thank you. Thank you so much once again to be on the show, for the opportunity. And thanks, Naran. He's actually in the middle of studying for exams. He's made time to join us. So
I appreciate that, man. Well, all the best.
This is, nice distraction as well. Good
incredible.
Time off. And thanks for having us on. And yeah, it's a cool experience. We've never done anything like this before. So.